As we meet Anchises in the Underworld, we get to see the point, the larger point of why Aeneas had to go down there. Yeah, we heard from Sibyl that he needed to go down there, or the things he needed to learn, but as we get down there and run into Anchises, we get the full thing laid out for us. In fact, we get a huge statement laid out for us. Anchises drops in basically statements about how the whole universe works. We hear out of his mouth a whole statement about the larger structure of the cosmos. We hear it from a scientific standpoint. We hear history enter in. We're going to look at some detailed quotations from the second part of Book 6 in a second, coming out of Anchises' mouth. But a couple of words before we get there on the background to this kind of literature. Virgil's working from precedents, multiple ones, not necessarily Homeric, interestingly. There surely are, of course, Homeric antecedents that we've been talking about, but there are closer ones for this part of Book 6 that come in other literary sources for him. Plato's Republic in Book 10 had talked about an underworld, the famous myth of spelled E-R, if you want to look that up, a wonderful piece of Plato's Republic, had a long narrative story about this soldier that dies, and during his death, he has revealed to him in his trip to the afterlife, revealed to him the whole structure of the cosmos and how everything works. Then in Cicero, on the famous part of his own Republic, his final book called The Dream of Scipio, an episode well known as The Dream of Scipio, Cicero talks about, again, in the same way, someone going to the afterlife, and at that point, and they're being brought there as a visitor, at that point it's revealed to them the whole structure of the cosmos and how everything works. It's likely also that Virgil was familiar by this time with a genre of literature that was emerging out of the ancient Near East that was called apocalypse. And it's true that some ancient apocalypses talk about the end of the world. A very famous one, the Book of Revelations that closes off the Christian Bible, does this. But not all apocalypses talk about the end of the world. They are literature that is based on revelation or unveiling. The Greek term apocalypse comes from a root apo, meaning away from or un, and kalypso, meaning to hide. So an apocalypse is an unveiling of some hidden truth. In this genre of literature, it always happens that someone has a hidden truth about how the universe works unveiled to him or her. Usually what happens is there's a dream, a visitation from a senior person, either in one's family or in one's city, comes down and scoops a person up in the dream and carries them off to either a mountaintop or some place, some vista where they can see the structure of the whole cosmos. The whole history is read out at that point, and the workings of the cosmos are unveiled. So these precedents are likely also to be behind Virgil's Book 6 here, in addition to the materials from Plato's Republic and Cicero's Dream of Scipio, his closing off of his own work, The Republic. So a lot of these genres are getting reworked in Virgil's treatment. Now, looking at the meat of what happens here, we hear from Anchises. He has us by the hand, he's leading us along, and he begins a series of observations on how the whole universe works, starting right from the very beginning, an interesting one, as this young boy, Aeneas, "Father, tell me, how does it all work?" And Anchises jumps right in. "First then, the sky and lands and sheets of water, the bright moon's globe, the Titan sun and stars are fed within by spirit. And a mind infused through all the members of the world makes one great living body of the mass. From spirit come the races of man and beast, the life of birds, odd creatures the deep sea contains beneath her sparkling surfaces, and fiery energy from a heavenly source belongs to the generative seeds of these. So far as they are not poisoned or clogged by mortal bodies, their free essence dimmed by earthiness or deathliness of flesh. This makes them fear and crave, rejoice and grieve." So Anchises gives, from the standpoint of a kind of starting scientific observation, talking about the elements and the planets and the cosmos, and a divine mind and spirit that flows through everything, borrowing from different philosophical schools of his time, including Stoicism and some others. He's building up a picture of the universe here, Virgil, and putting it into the mouth of Anchises, an authoritative person, and letting Aeneas become educated on not just small things, but on the biggest things, how the whole cosmos functions. This is the kind of message that Aeneas gets in the Underworld. Now, as the story goes on, and as Anchises is continuously revealing the basic structure of things, he soon enough gets to this person, doesn't he? And we have a pretty seamless movement from a discussion that would count as kind of scientific observation of how the universe is structured into an historical one. So we move rather seamlessly from cosmology and science into history. We hear about Augustus. He will extend his power beyond the Garamants and Indians over far territories north and south of the zodiacal stars, the solar way, where Atlas, heaven bearing on his shoulders, turns the night sphere studded with burning stars. At that man's coming, even now, the realms of Caspia and Maeotia tremble. Warned by oracles, and the 7 mouths of Nile go dark with fear. The truth is, even Alcides never traversed so much earth. Coming out of Anchises' mouth, talking about this man, Augustus, and that closing statement, the truth is, even Alcides never traversed so much earth. In the back of your text, you've got a glossary, just as you did in your translation of the Odyssey. Have a look at who this Alcides is. Someone we know. Remember this guy? Well, Virgil is telling us something that is undoubtedly true, and that is a stunning thing to be true. This guy over here outdoes this guy over here. If we take the most glorious, fantastic, mythical legends of Heracles, the Roman Hercules, and his dominion over the earth, and how far he traveled, and the amazing things he did, and all the labors that he completed, well beyond what any human being is capable of, well, guess what, Romans? Virgil's saying, we live in a time where real historical figures are doing things that are even grander than what myth can cough up to us. And you gotta kind of hand it to them, to these Romans. It's true. By now, history is, in actuality, outdoing myth. Fact and historical truth is outdoing mythological fantasy. So Augustus, yeah, in truth, is doing something that even Hercules could never have imagined doing. We go through a further discussion of what this Romanness is all about. We talk about avenging the Trojan ancestors being avenged by the Romans eventually conquering Greece. So even though the Greeks might have felt like they beat the precursor to the Trojans, or precursor to the Romans back in Troy, well, eventually Rome gets its dominance. We hear about them. It was a revenge for the theft of the Palladium and the rape of Cassandra. These things start to percolate back up, the old crimes of Greece. Then we get to a point at the end of Anchises' speech where he makes very clear what this new thing that Aeneas is on the verge of beginning, what this new thing is all about. We need to know a little bit more about what is this Rome we're headed off to get started on. Anchises will lay it out for us exactly what this new idea is. Others will cast more tenderly in bronze their breathing figures, I can well believe, and bring more lifelike portraits out of marble, argue more eloquently, use the pointer to trace the paths of heaven accurately, and accurately foretell the rising of stars. Roman, remember by your strength to rule earth's peoples, for your arts are to be these: to pacify, to impose the rule of law, to spare the conquered, and battle down the proud. Wow. So all of you Romans out there, if you were wondering, gosh, what does it mean to be Roman? Remember at the beginning of our discussion of the Aeneid, we talked about this tumult, historical tumult that had been happening during Virgil's time, the difficulty that they've been through, the decades and decades of civil war, the upheavals, the militarism. And as a Roman, you and I might have been a little bit worried about what Romanness is all about. We might have said to ourselves, well, is to be Roman only to be a war-hungry, fratricidal militarist? Well, here we're hearing right out of Anchises' mouth in this moment of revelatory truth about the way the whole cosmos is structured, bleeding into history, moving into an identity of Rome. This is what it is to be Roman. The point of all of this, you Romans, is to make the earth work right. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, the historical import of this message is, without question, extremely powerful. Virgil, through this figure of Aeneas and through his story as he tells it, pretty much succeeds in giving the Romans a new identity, an identity, a sense of self that they can hang on to. It sticks, in other words. Virgil's project and the project that is undertaken and supported by those around him in positions of political power, the sense of what it is to be Roman changes. And I think it would have to be, you'd have to be a little bit unkind to say that it doesn't change for the better. And it probably, in the longer scheme of things, is a little bit better to talk about the Romans as having this as their best side. Virgil's able to get that sense of them and make it strong and make it regnant. Now, the message, though, of course, that Virgil's carrying across, he never gives us anything straight without taking a little bit away. Recall how our book ends. Here we've got a wonderful picture of the sort of center of Romanness and what it's all about. And having been through a clear discussion of Rome's power and its sway and its ability to bring peace to people, Virgil has this whole grand statement of things enter or leave from the underworld in a way that makes us wonder just what he intended. We exit, as you recall, from this whole scene after this largest statement about Romanness and how grand it is and how science has given way to history and how history has overtaken myth. All of this exits, the grandest statements that Virgil pronounces, all of this exits out of the gate of false dreams. Now, what are we supposed to make of this? Well, classic Virgil giving us some sense of surety, then taking it away. It's not exactly clear, and scholars have never had any settled opinion on what this statement about that Virgil's making of having Aeneas exit through the gate of false dreams, but we surely know that it is a destabilizing gesture, and all those things before us that we thought were fully stable, we've got to place a question mark after them now. In typical Virgilian fashion, the world is not quite so simple as we thought it might be.